Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon, founder and voice of Falcons Drip. Today, we are going to break down and discuss the inside linebacker position, which is, in my opinion, the most important position on this defense. Those guys are really versatile, and Dean Pease is going to have a lot of fun doing different things with these guys. And to kick us off as usual, Ferg, why don't you hit us with another fun fact?
You got it. Listen up, boys and girls. Rhinoceros horns are made of hair. More specifically, rhinoceros horns are made of keratin, which is a fibrous structural protein that spider silks are also made of. You know what's going to be a spider silk? The Falcons defense is going to be a spider silk this year.
Whee! Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think about that?
I believe keratin is also what makes up our fingernails. I'm not
Yeah,
positive.
but that wasn't part of it.
I'm just saying that, so the rhinoceros horn is similar to what our fingernails are made out of. I believe.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure that that's 100% true.
So imagine getting, hit with a knuckle sandwich. One of my knuckle sandwiches, it's a rhinoceros horn keratin.
I think I'd rather get hit with a knuckle sandwich.
I don't think there's much force behind it.
Anyway, we can test that out later, Jeff.
Talk.
But isn't that kind of neat? Honestly, I thought that was kind of neat. I had no idea rhinoceros horn is technically made of the same protein, I should say, as that our hair is made.
Yeah, I
of,
never would have
right?
guessed that. I would have thought it was like a
Very
bone,
interesting.
like a bone.
Absolutely,
I guess, and
right?
I've never really looked at a rhinoceros skull, right? But I would have thought if you looked at the skull, you'd see the
it would
horn.
have been part of the
but
skull.
if you didn't
right?
see the horn, then obviously it makes sense.
Yeah. I wonder if, so you know how a lot of dinosaurs had those, you ever seen a T-Rex?
Mm-hmm.
I know T-Rex didn't have a horn, but you have Spinosaurus, and I guess they didn't really have horns, but I'm pretty sure it was cartilage, or maybe,
Who knows?
maybe it was keratin.
Maybe
I don't
they
know.
didn't look anything like we thought they did because of that, right? Maybe they had these.
Are you saying they could fly spaceships?
No, I'm saying maybe they had rhinoceros horns coming out all over their body that just dissolved because they weren't made of bone.
Oh, that's true. Huh, that's interesting.
Well, I could talk about this stuff all day, but instead of talking about dinosaurs and fossils, let's talk about this defense. And you can't talk about this defense without talking about the inside linebackers. This is the core of the defense. This is where our best players are from top to bottom. I'm really confident in every single position as inside linebacker 1, inside linebacker 2, inside linebacker 3, inside linebacker 4, and possibly an inside linebacker 5. I really like this group.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, top to bottom, it's a good group. Pretty clear hierarchy. Jeff, what do you think? What do you have for us here?
Oh, I think it starts off with Deion Jones, who is a fan favorite, has been for a few years. I think most of the NFL knows that he's top tier. Definitely top 5 inside linebacker. You could definitely make the argument for number 1. So,
Ooh, I like that.
He's in there. I mean, you look at Darius Leonard and him. I mean, the Luke
Bobby
Kuechly's
Wagner.
are gone.
You got Bobby Wagner still, but I would.
But he's on the tail end, I feel like.
Bob Wagner.
Here's a question I got for you guys. So, Deion Jones has played 5 seasons. How many touchdowns does Deion Jones have?
Oh, wow. He's played 5 seasons. I'm going to say 5 touchdowns.
I think it's 2.
He has 5. He has 5 touchdowns. All
There you go. He's got one per
all
year,
pick
right?
sixes. So he's had one every year, except for his rookie year. He had 2, and his second year he didn't have one. But
Got it. Okay.
no, Deion.
Sophomore slump.
Yeah, exactly. But Deion Jones, he has honestly just been a star in this defense. He doesn't do everything just amazing, right? But the things that he does top tier, maybe better than anyone else in the league. He's got blazing speed. He's ridiculous in coverage. And one thing that he showed us last year is he can blitz. Getting after the quarterback, he flies. He doesn't take on blocks as well as some other linebackers, but if he can get a free release, and he can also smash some of the running backs trying to block him. So in this new defense that we're going to have, I think that's huge. He had 4.5 sacks last year, led our team in sacks, which I don't know if that's a testament to him or a testament to how weak our edge is, which we will talk about.
I hate to say it. I think it's a testament to how weak our edge is.
Well,
4.5 sacks for a linebacker is pretty good, but
to lead the team
is it's concerning. Definitely for the edge positions, it makes you wonder, or I guess consider with more seriousness, just how weak are we at the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but
that's for next time.
That's for next. Yeah, that's for our next.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he's top 3 again, based on this new defense and based on what you said.
Mm-hmm.
If he has some free runs, he makes the most of them. Dean Pease's defense are known for being hard to predict, and it sets guys up to get free rushes. So when you have him flying to the quarterback, you have to think that with this defense, he's going to have more opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if he's up at 6-7 sacks this year, which would put him top 3 and hopefully not number 1. Hopefully somebody else steps up this year.
Sure, absolutely. What makes you think 6-7 sacks? I'm just curious. Is it the blitz-heavy defense that they're
It's a
implementing?
blitz-heavy defense that, like I said, it sets people up for free rushes because you don't know who's coming. Dean Pease will send anyone and everyone. Doesn't really matter the down. He's very confusing for offensive coordinators. That's where his strength has always been, and that's why they picked up a lot of the versatile players in the offseason that can blitz or cover because he'll drop. It almost feels at random. But
I was going to ask you, so there's not really much of a predictability with when he's going to send the kitchen sink. It's just kind of like
you do know he's going to send guys. You just don't know which ones.
Which ones or when, like you said, or how many.
Right.
Yeah, that makes all right, I see. But so you guys saying that almost every down, somebody's coming.
Every passing down. And it might every passing down. And it might not be you might not see your traditional 4 defensive line like we did with Dan Quinn. You saw your 4 D linemen and you had, different like 1 or 2 linebackers and more DBs. With Dean Pease, we might see, anywhere from 4 to no defensive linemen and more, like the amoeba type schemes with more linebackers and safeties and corners out on the field.
Yeah, you could easily see 6 linebackers out there for him.
Wow.
And no defensive linemen.
So just to also reiterate,
on passing downs.
It doesn't make any sense. I've never even wow.
So to reiterate too,
it obviously makes sense. Let me just say that. I'm just surprised. The guy knows what he's doing.
To reiterate what Jeff was saying too, Deion Jones had 0.5 sacks while Dan Quinn was around, and they really weren't blitzing a lot. And then the rest of the 4 came when Raheem Morris took over, and they started sending more and more of the linebackers. So if they had played more blitz schemes and ran more blitz schemes last year, then we could have seen Deion Jones possibly having, like you said, 7 or 8 sacks. But I would say that Dean Pease's blitzes and schemes are going to be better than anything we saw last year.
Right, but I don't think they'll rely on as heavily him for it. Whereas I think last year that was kind of the focus, if I have that right. And so using him as the focus of the blitzing last year, which is this year, it'll be everybody's going to get a turn. So it'll be a more democratic system, I guess I would say.
And they definitely used him and Foye a lot blitzing last year. And we'll talk about Foye in a little bit. With Deion, too, one thing that's great about him is he has in the past, not so much last year, but he has in the past really shut down in the passing game your Christian McCaffreys, your Alvin Kamara's, which we play twice a year. Those guys will end up, if you play them in fantasy, they'll end up with 10 catches, but only for, 20 yards, only for 50 yards, which for them is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the other bonus this year, sending other people blitzing, is you get to really use Deion's real skill, which is to really shut somebody down.
Mm-hmm. And now he's fast enough too. Like he can cover some receivers. I'm not going to, I don't want to put him on a Tyreek Hill or maybe not on a Devontae Adams or something. But he can, your average receiver, I'm very happy just seeing Deion Jones out there one-on-one on him.
Definitely.
So with Deion, pretty much, we've talked about it. He's a stud, top 10 linebacker for sure, possibly top 1, like Jeff said. I would say definitely top 5, possibly number 1.
It's a tough argument for 1, but it definitely top 5.
Give me another linebacker that averages a touchdown a season.
I don't know that I have one, but if we're scoring defensive players by the touchdowns they score, I think Marcus Peters is the best corner if you're going off that system. So that's a risky system to go with.
So let's talk about Deion's running mate and Foye Oluokun. Foye came in from Yale as a safety, and he has just proceeded to get better and better every single year. He's not as fast as Deion, but he is fast. And he's thicker than Deion is, and you can really see him lay the wood. When he blitzes, he doesn't get to the quarterback as quick, but I actually enjoy watching him blitz just as much as Deion because you can really see him push the pocket a little bit, where Deion will kind of get swallowed up some. Running backs can't block Foye. He blasts them.
I would expect to see him blitzing more than Deion Jones this year. I can't. It's hard for me to imagine, based on their skill sets, like you just said, that Deion Jones is going to be blitzing more than Foye.
I think when we do blitz Deion, it's going to be in Dean Pease's eyes. Sorry to jump back to Deion, but in Dean Pease's eyes, he's going to have free rushes. Like they're going to be accounting for people elsewhere, and he's going to come in free because it takes him less than a second to get to the quarterback.
How controlled is Dean Pease's defense? Meaning, is anyone going to have something that is, something that is near to, I guess, free roam or having the green light like with Deion Jones? Meaning, you kind of, you call the defense, but, obviously it's coming from the box, it's coming from the sideline. But you also, you've got room to kind of do your own thing. I'm just curious, is there anyone on this defense that has that ability or that will be granted that ability?
So one thing that's awesome about Dean Pease is he really loves to get the input of the players. So he'll set up the game plan and say, like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? And like he has open conversations with what they think, and he'll legitimately think about what they say. And sometimes he'll implement that. Sometimes he'll say, okay, I don't think this is what we're going to do, and this is why. So I think in that sense, no one's going to have like the green light, like, okay, you can do whatever you want, but they're going to have a big input on the game plan.
Yeah, okay.
I think also, too, you'll see it more as the year goes on when the players get more comfortable for what plays work in certain situations, because they'll somewhat get a feel in training camp, but it's different than the real thing. So they'll have to really experience some of that stuff before they're comfortable really getting the green light, as you said, to just switch plays.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about both Foye and Deion. I think switching from this 3-4, like from a 4-3 to more of a 3-4 look, which we're assuming, right? Dean P, we could come in. He plays multiple fronts, all right. We could come in with 3-4, 4-3, 2-5. Who knows what we're going to see? But assuming we're going to see more 3-4 looks, I really like that for both Deion and Foye because they're going to have a lot less blockers in their face with more guys up front, and hopefully that's going to lead because they're both smaller, faster linebackers. So that can lead to them having more like free reign, more open gaps, less worrying about offensive linemen kind of getting in their face.
Sure. Which is great. I mean, that's great. That's really great. Open it up. That way they have, as you said, the ability to just make more of an impact. I'd imagine it's difficult to, do your job at the linebacker position when the defensive line is right in your grill because they're getting driven back or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, and they're both, and like I said, they're both awesome in coverage. Foye had, I think he had two picks last year, but he was a safety, so he's got the speed. He does well against running backs, just like Deion. He had struggled a little bit against some of the better tight ends last year, but so is it most of the league. And he also is he's awesome on special teams. I don't know if you guys remember, but they actually hit I think it was 2 years ago. I can't even remember. Everything's mishmashed in my head. But he recovered 3 onside kicks in a row. One of them did get called back, but he recovered 3 onside kicks in a row because he's got that speed. He's got that ball hawking ability. He had 4 forced fumbles last year, and they were like very, not like, sometimes you see like you tackle him and the ball comes out and it's like, oh, that's a forced fumble. He like punches the ball out, rips the ball out. He's just got a nose for it. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for these 2 guys in this new system.
Yeah, we talked about Deion Jones being definitely top 5. I think you could see Foye fighting to get into the top 10 at least.
Yeah.
Conversation.
I think we're talking about possibly the 2 best, like the best combo linebackers in the league maybe next year. I know you've got Devin White and Levante David down in Tampa, but I can't think of too many guys that are as good as these 2 or as good as these guys can be.
Right. They need to do it this year. They were really good last year. They need to continue on that path.
Mm-hmm. And I would even say Deion maybe even faltered a little bit last year. Like it almost seemed like there at times he wasn't as good at reading the play as he had been in years past. But if he can kind of get back on track, even if he stays right where he is, he's a top 10 linebacker. But if he can get back on track and Foye can continue to develop and grow, we're talking about 2 top 10 linebackers.
I got to say, based on what you guys are saying collectively and agreeing upon, it doesn't appear that there's any reason as to why they shouldn't be able to replicate last year or even do better, right? Have a better year. Dean P's defense, as you guys have said, appears to cater to their style of play. So that's really exciting. You have what was last year already one of the top duos at the inside linebacker position. Now they're going into another season together with more experience. They're both still, in their prime, and they have a defensive scheme that is going to cater to their play. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and you can't forget about when talking about the inside backers, we can't not talk about Michael Walker. And he's kind of like the 3rd inside backer in this rotation. But he's one of those guys where I would not be shocked if we saw him as you've got Dante Fowler on one side, and then we could see Michael Walker as the other outside linebacker walked up on the line. Now, he was awesome in pass coverage last year. I want to say his PFF pass coverage grade was like a 90.2, which is crazy for a linebacker. But when Michael Walker was in college, I've got these stats right in front of me. He played 333 snaps as an inside linebacker. He played 1 snap as a free safety, 1 snap as an outside cornerback, 64 snaps as a slot cornerback, and 490 snaps on the defensive line. Sometimes that was in like an end position. Sometimes that was a defensive tackle position. So he knows how to play that outside backer defensive end scheme.
Well, I mean, as a corner as well in college. You said,
he played
right?
1 snap at corner. So
1 snap at
outside.
corner. Okay.
You said he played a few at slot.
Oh, so. sorry. Yeah. 1 snap as like an outside corner, 64 in the slot.
Yeah. I mean, what's, how fast is this guy? I'm just curious. Is this someone we could potentially see shift back to? It seems like he's great in coverage. Shift back to like a strong safety.
So I think like the way they're going to
a box safety. Excuse me.
He basically was like he almost is like that, except he's not.
So what is he, like a nickel or is he a box?
So he's
safety?
6'3", like 235 pounds.
Gotcha.
So he's like another like fast linebacker. He's another one. He's another fast.
He's another one of those.
Yeah,
right.
he's not as fast.
He's not super big. He's not a huge linebacker. I mean, at least weight wise, height 6'3", 6'4". That's pretty standard.
And though, like in NFL today, like 235 is probably a pretty good. Not like big, but it's a good size for a linebacker. Like
I mean,
they're getting smaller every year. It feels like
that's true because they have to be quicker. They have to be faster.
A lot of these guys would have played strong safety 20 years ago.
Yeah, but Michael Walker, like I said,
well, that's why I asked because he does fit the bill.
Yeah,
he could. He fits the bill.
And I think we're going to see him walk down. play that like kind of like Sam outside linebacker role. And then when you think about it this way, because of our like wanting to play multiple schemes or like even shifting to multiple schemes in the middle of a play, you could have Michael Walker, let's say, he can bump back from like a stand-up end, bump back to a strong side linebacker in a 4-3, and you could have a guy like Marlon Davidson or John Kaminsky bump out to the defensive end spot.
Sure.
So even though Michael Walker, and we're talking about inside linebackers, even though Michael Walker is an inside linebacker, I would not be shocked to see him being the starting outside backer in our system.
I don't see why not at this point. It just makes so much sense. He's too talented to keep off the field.
Definitely. He is. He would be one of our better players, but he just happens to be behind Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun.
So I don't know what it is, but I'm confident that Dean Pease will find a place for him.
My inside sources have told me that Dean Pease, one of the first things he said is he loves Michael Walker. And like you guys said, I think there's no way he doesn't find a way to use him. Now, here's an interesting thought. Deion Jones is set to make $19 million next year. Foye Oluokun is set to be a free agent next year. So depending on how those three guys play, could it be possible we see one of them not on the team next year?
Here's what I want to say. I really like that question. Here's what I want to say, though, and that kind of brings me back to what I was just talking about with Michael Walker, and that could you see him bump back to like a strong safety position or this or that. The linebacker position, I just don't feel like that's a position where you want to skimp out, right? There are other places, is what I'm getting at. There are other places that I would try to make it work with the salary cap, right? I would try at running back. I would try it. Just that running back is not nearly as valuable as it was, 10 years ago, right? And I say running back just because that's an easy one, but I think you guys understand the gist of what I'm saying, and that's that when you have a unit that just works well together, and it's a linebacking unit, it's just really important that you keep those guys together. You try to preserve that as long as you can, in my opinion. I'm not a coach. I'm not an NFL coach. I'm not a high school coach. But, you don't need a Harvard PhD to understand that when you have something that works, you want to do whatever you can to preserve it, to make sure it continues to work, especially when it works the way that this unit does, right? As we previously discussed, this is not potentially, it is one of the best units, linebacking units in the NFL.
And that's, here's the thing, is it's all predictive, right? So, like, let's say Michael Walker tears it up, Foye Oluokun tears it up, and we see Deion Jones like continue to regress, making $19 million. They very easily could say, all right.
Is he in regression?
No. But last year he like regressed a little bit.
He regressed.
Like, not. I don't think it's for any. I really don't think it's for any other reason than our team. Our defense was pretty poor last year. But let's say he just continues that path. There's no reason they can't say by cutting him they would save $10 million next year. And by the way, Atlanta right now is in 2022. They're over the cap. To
me, the biggest variable is, do they get to the quarterback? Mm-hmm. If they get to the quarterback successfully next year, we're talking top half of the league. Maybe you spend the money on all these guys. If they're still bottom 10 teams in the league at getting to the quarterback, even with these great guys, they have to figure out how to get to the quarterback, because you can't win in this league if you can't get to the quarterback.
And I agreed 100%. And that's what I'm saying, though. Like, it's all. We don't know. If these three guys tear it up, I don't see any reason why Atlanta wouldn't keep all three.
I agree. Having said that, let's backpedal just a little bit to what you were saying about if one guy has to go based on the performances of last year and the potentials for this year. The potentials being, you look at how long Deion Jones has been in the league. He's been in the league 5 years, right? The average, I have the stats in front of me right now. The average time spent in the NFL for an inside linebacker is about 5 years. So Deion Jones is he's right about at the average. So Patrick Willis played 8 years. He's one of the best linebackers of our time. played 8 years. He performed all 8 of those years. He didn't show significant regression, and I'm not implying that Deion Jones shows significant regression or that he will this year. Point being, though, is that you have one of our generation's great linebackers, played 8 years. Deion Jones is at 5 years. The average is 5 years. It's probably Deion Jones. If someone goes, it's probably Deion Jones. Meaning in the next 2 to 3 years, it's probably
I think it just depends on how they play, right? And
wait a second, though. Just real quick, go back, because I said 2 to 3 years. I think that was not that was a mistake. I just want to get clarity from you on when did you say Mykal Walker is?
So we drafted him last year, so he's got 3 more years left, not including this. Including this year, he's got 3 more years left. Mykal Walker,
right, until he's a free agent.
So Mykal Walker's on the team.
So 2 to 3 years is definitely Deion Jones. I guarantee it. But
Foye could be gone next year, is what I'm saying. Like if depending on how these guys play, because you got to remember, Foye is going to be a free agent. If he continues to progress, like be a stud, we could have to pay him $10 million, $11 million next year. Where Deion Jones,
where do you stop? And see, let's just, where do you stop? I don't know off the top of my head. Jeff, maybe just while we're discussing, if you don't mind, is it possible you could just pull something up about, I'm trying to pull it up right now, but pull something up about what does the average team spend on a linebacking core or unit, right? I want to know, where do you stop? Where do you draw the line in the sand? How well does your linebacking core have to be performing in the NFL for coaches to say, or GMs to say, it's worth it, keep the money flowing, we need to keep these guys on. Right?
But I think part of that almost doesn't matter what other teams do. It's what Dean Pease does and what he feels comfortable with.
I agree, but I want a case study.
Yeah.
I want some kind of case study, something we can go off, some hard evidence, statistics, and that's just why I'm trying to pull it up right now.
And the other thing too is because you were saying that linebackers averages 5 years. One thing you have to also consider is Foye is 25 and Deion's 26. So I don't know how age actually factors into it, right? So maybe just because Deion Jones has 5 years in the league and Foye has 3, they're really only 1 year apart.
Gotcha.
And I don't know how that factors in.
Yeah. See, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't taking that into consideration. That makes a lot of sense, though. Age probably doesn't have, our time in the NFL is what we really should be saying. Probably doesn't have as much to do with it, considering the age difference between these guys.
Yeah, and who knows?
Right. Well, so I was looking into. It's not a hard stat, but it's a rough estimate just based on what I was looking at. So, say in the NFL, not including outside linebackers, just talking about inside. You're looking at the average is about, I'm going to give an estimate to and from because, again, it's not exact. It's about 10 to 14 million, for an inside core.
Like a lot of the top guys earn in
a lot of the top
10,
guys are making
20.
18, 10. Right.
So you're looking at...
But they're not accompanied by someone who then is making, $6 million. They're accompanied by someone who's making, $600,000, right?
Yeah. And
I think
going back to your question, it goes to something that Jeff said where it depends on how many sacks these guys get. How much pressure do these guys get? Like, because if they're...
Right, how much of an impact do they have?
If they're able to generate, like, outside linebacker, defensive end type pressure, then pay them because they're going to be cheaper than pay all 3 of them because paying 3 of them is going to be cheaper than paying two edges.
I think there's potential here with that group to make something happen like they did in Baltimore. Meaning, and when I say like they did in Baltimore, back when you had Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, you had
Dean
1,
Pease
2, 3. You had one at each tier, right?
Dean Pease coached them.
There you go. Exactly. And I think you'd said that in earlier podcasts, right? We discussed this Dean Pease coach. I hope we see something like that because this inside linebacking core is so tight, and they're just on their SHIT. They know what they're doing and they perform. At least they have been performing. I hope we see that.
And
I hope we see some restructuring.
And hopefully they continue to perform.
Right, so that we can see that restructuring.
I would love to see
as
it.
You said,
I would love.
If they don't continue, if they don't continue performing, we're not going to see any. There's not going to be any restructuring.
Someone won't be
Someone's
here next
year.
If they don't all perform, somebody won't be here next year.
Right.
And also too, like, they'll have some serious thinking to do. So with that, let's jump into some of these backup guys, right? And you guys can tell me if you disagree with me, but the fourth inside linebacker has to be Brandon Copeland, who we signed as a free agent this past year.
Brandon Copeland. Let's talk.
I would think so. I mean, he's 6 years in the league. He's not going to wow you, but he's an NFL player. Like, he's proven that. He's been on a few teams. He gets picked up, and they need.
Where's he been? Let's talk a little bit more about it. I'm just curious. Where's he been?
He was on the Patriots last year, Jets the 2 years before, and then
I always like when guys are on the Patriots. I just think guys that come from the Patriots and have been through the Patriots program, they just do well. At least when Brady was there.
Well, they do well there. They don't always do so well after.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. So is this
also our new linebackers coach, Frank Bush, speaks nothing but praises about Copeland. Like coached him on the Jets, and just spoke very highly of him. So it's for me, like, he's a lock to make the roster as LB4. So another thing too about Copeland is not only does he play inside linebacker, he's had some experience at outside too. So like in a pinch, or maybe he backs up, maybe he's Michael Walker's backup.
Yeah, and wherever Michael Walker goes,
yeah,
he's the understudy. Could very well be.
Yeah. The understudy. I like the way you put that. That's good.
But I like Copeland a lot. Great on special teams, versatile, does a lot. And he's a very smart dude.
Yeah, he's a pro. They brought him in so they don't have to worry about him.
Mm-hmm.
He makes the roster.
He also went to Penn, graduated from Penn. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe he had a pretty high grade point average. So,
yeah, I mean, that's impressive. To graduate from Penn, Penn has been, isn't Penn's considered like a lower Ivy?
It's a top tier school.
It's a top tier school, right? They have you have your Ivy Leagues, and then you have your they call them like your lower Ivies or something. They're not Ivy Leagues, but there are tiers, to the college system, and to be a linebacker and perform at the level he did in college and have a good or high grade point average is impressive.
Definitely.
And also too, like when you look at Brandon Copeland and like you look up his his Instagram, or you won't see as much football stuff on there as you will see like business stuff, financials, how to make money.
Interesting.
He's just a smart dude. He's the kind of guy you want in your locker room. So for me, he's a lock there at LB4.
Well, and right. And so that's like, it's not just, let's just be clear though. We're not just talking about his academic abilities or achievements because, oh, wow, good for you, Brandon Copeland. It's important, and it translates to the football field. It shows that he's sharp. He's, you know what I mean? He's got a sharp brain. He is going to be able to, and he has shown that he's able to pick up on things quickly, which is extremely important at the linebacker position, as we all know, because you're either the general of the defense or you're part of the, the general club. You know what I mean? It's like you're one of the guys out there calling the shots. You need to be able to see the field.
Definitely. So I like Copeland a lot. He's, for me, another lock to make the roster. Especially, we talked about that versatility. Now, any other points you guys want to bring up with Copeland?
No.
I think we covered.
Yeah, he's as simple a decision. Yeah. Like, it's not like he's a star, but it's just simple.
Great.
Like, he makes a
backup. If let's say, Michael Walker and Foye go down, I'm very pleased having Brandon Copeland in playing next to Deion, or if any of those guys go down.
Yeah, even if they just need a break, it's not like, oh, the offense is going to attack this guy for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's a pretty solid core that we have there. Our top 4 guys. So who are we thinking gets cut? Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a question of, do they keep 5? Do they keep 4 on the regular roster? And then who makes the practice squad or not? And for me, I think that Dorian Etheridge has the inside track to the practice squad. I don't think either him or Errol Thompson will make the actual roster.
Got it. Okay. So Errol Thompson, Errol Thompson's probably going to be the odd man out here.
I would disagree. I actually think not only do I like Errol Thompson for the practice squad, I wouldn't be shocked to see him on the actual roster.
So I know we already kind of touched on this. Thon, you think that we could potentially see 6 guys make the roster. Five guys. Excuse me. Correction. Yeah. 5 guys.
So when you look at it, and if you look at it this way, right?
You're saying make the roster, though? 5 guys make the roster. 1 guy makes the practice squad. I just want to be...
Or I think Etheridge doesn't make the team. I don't think he makes the practice squad. I think Thompson is a guy who might like flex back and forth as being active, inactive. But like when you look at this team and we look at the 4 guys we talked about, we've got, according to what I said, you got Deion Jones and Foye as the 2 inside guys. You got Michael Walker as a starting outside linebacker. So now you're going to tell me that we're going to go into it with just Brandon Copeland, who's going to back up all 3 spots? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's going to be other people at the outside back.
That's a really good point. The linebacker position, the linebacker position especially. I was so excited to say that. There are typically a lot of injuries at the linebacker position.
So if we think we're going to be playing 3 of these guys very frequently, I think it would be kind of crazy not to play with another linebacker, because a lot of the other outside linebackers, and you guys can't see me, but I'm doing hand quotes, they're more like defensive ends playing outside linebacker. And
sure.
We'll talk more about them tomorrow, but it would be kind of crazy, like I said, to me, to go into a game with 3 guys who are going to play a lot and only have 1 guy that can really back them up.
Yeah. My main problem with it is I don't think really either Dorian or Errol are ready to play in the NFL. And that's my main hesitation on.
Now, what
on that?
There seems to be consensus there. What makes you guys say that? I mean, I see Dorian Etheridge. I'm looking up some, physical attributes, but he does not look like a big guy.
No, he's not a big guy.
He looks like he could play, or probably should be playing safety.
So he has like really thin.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at him, and I'm kind of shocked that he's a linebacker.
So why don't let's play a little judge and jury to end this podcast out, to end this one out. Jeff, why don't you tell Ferg why Dorian Etheridge is going to be the guy that makes, if somebody makes the roster, why it's going to be him, and then I'll talk about Thompson.
Yeah, so these guys are, in my mind, almost polar opposites as for style and physique even, like you were talking about. So it comes down to me to be who fits the style of the NFL currently and who is going to come in and sub. Like if they have to come in and sub in for Deion Jones or Foye, like who's going to fill that role better in the defense? And to me, that's Dorian Etheridge. He's a smaller guy. He's pretty good in coverage. I mean, he's an undrafted free agent. It's not like he's going to be like any of the other guys we've mentioned today in coverage. But he's a little stronger in that sense. He's not actually stronger. Errol Thompson is a much bigger guy. He hits hard. He fits the old linebacker of old mold. And my issue with Errol is he right now really doesn't have the speed, in my opinion, to play in the NFL.
What's his 40 time? Not that that's an indicator for success. Just I'm curious.
I don't have his 40 time right in front of me, but do you have it?
Thon, you may have it, right?
I'm gonna use that. Let me know when you're done so I can coach you up a little bit.
Dorian, I think maybe he's able to put on a little bit of weight and maybe he'll fit a little better, but I just see him as being a better fit for the defense than Errol. I wouldn't really like to see either of these guys hitting the field yet. I don't think either of them is ready. And so, to me, if they need to get 5 linebackers on the roster, I'd love to see them look at maybe somebody who's available outside of these 2 guys.
Yeah, the top 4 are strong. We have a strong top 4, but I get what you guys are saying, just looking into this a little bit more, and I know we're doing a little judge and jury here, so I should let you guys talk, but it's pretty evident that the top 4 linebackers are really separate themselves from these 2 guys. I mean, these 2 guys, just looking at
undrafted rookies.
Well, that makes sense,
expected. Right? If they are,
that makes perfect sense, right? That's enough said.
So let me tell you why Errol Thompson is going to be the guy, because they both ran 4.8s. So as slow as Thompson is, Etheridge isn't much faster. But Etheridge does, theoretically look better in coverage because he's longer. He looks faster. but he's really not. Earl Thompson might not be great in coverage, but he's great at blitzing. He's great between the tackles. Again, he's not your typical, linebacker where you can go sideline to sideline. But with 4.8 speed, I don't think Etheridge is going to be either. But what Thompson can do is he's going to play the run very well, and he can blitz well. He comes screaming through, and he smashes running backs that try and block him. So, yes, he's not going to be Deion Jones, but no one is going to be Deion Jones. If Deion Jones goes down, they're going to have to change what they're doing. I mean, that's that. But
how about
Errol Thompson may not? He probably will struggle in coverage because he's 6 foot, 245 pounds, I want to say, and runs a 4.8. So he's not going to be great. Even if he's in the right place at the right time with kind of like shorter arms, he's probably not going to be deflecting many passes. So if he's in the game, you're going to have to send him. So, also he's awesome on special teams. Plays a ton of special teams. And I'm trying to remember what they said. One of the draft analysts said that Thompson is the kind of guy that if he had the opportunity, he would put his face in a beehive in order to help his team get the win. I mean, he's just that kind of dude. So that's why I give him the edge. Not that I dislike Etheridge, and like you said, Jeff, they're completely different. But when Etheridge ran the 4.8 and Thompson ran the 4.8, that was like, for me, it solidified it. Like, all right, there's other things Thompson can do. He doesn't fit the mold, but you can find a spot for him.
I have to say, just listening to you both, last time we did this, little judge and jury, I'm fairly certain I sided with Jeff. And I'm not just doing this to even the odds, but Thon made, I think, a much better case as far as why Errol would perform better, right? Or will perform better.
I think I might have swayed Jeff, too.
No, I'm still on the same thing. To me,
he's persuaded.
Without knowing the 40 times, like that doesn't make me feel great about what I said.
Well, and that's kind of that's one of the things that got me. But I want to know more about the lateral quickness. Do you know anything about that, Jeff or Thon?
I don't know. I just watched film, and Etheridge looks more fluid to me as well. So that kind of swayed me in that bit as well. Errol can kind of look a little stiff, and then also sometimes his angles aren't the best even with his...
Something I'll say, though, I got to say, again, there's a weird thing out there that, especially in football, and you know what? It's not just football. It's basketball. It's team sports, really, where you're competing against... multiple opponents. Sometimes these guys who aren't very fluid and they're kind of like rigid in their movements, or they don't have the same like giveaways or like markers or body language. They're harder to read. I know that sounds crazy, but it's harder to pick up on what they're going to do because they don't have that fluidity. It's like this, they're oddly extremely athletic. They have these weird, odd body types, and they're able to move and make plays, partially because you're looking across the field at this guy, right? He's coming at you, and you're thinking, all right, I'm gonna turn it up here. And then, you know what I mean? It's a very, next thing you know, he's right there. He's got you wrapped up. It's just, I think that the fluidity part of this discussion probably says more about Errol. More about Errol, and that I think it benefits him.
I would agree with Jeff, though, that Thompson is definitely less fluid than Etheridge is. But I think,
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? About
that it's because of that awkwardness, right. It plays to his advantage, possibly.
And that's a real thing. Like that is Kawhi Leonard's kind of an awkward. You ever watch him play basketball? Like, he's not a super fluid player. It's not that he's awkward. He's a great player, but he's kind of like, he just does things that you're like, I wasn't really like, it just didn't look like that would work. And that's, obviously he's one of the best players in the world. But my point is also the fluidity is, I think it's much more important when you're playing, like, if you're on the offensive side of the ball, I think it would be much more important for like a receiver. Let's just, you know what I mean? And I say that because maybe not. I'm going to go back on that. There's something to be said. That's ultimately the point I'm trying to make. There's something to be said about, but there is a fine line there's a fine line when it comes to fluidity.
So just one more thing about these two guys, because I think Etheridge does take better angles, but you can kind of teach and work with angles. But you can teach and work with both these things. But Thompson doesn't miss as many tackles.
No, that's a huge issue for Etheridge at the next level, and that's where I think he needs to bulk up a little bit, and maybe that makes a difference. But he does have to get better at that. That's what I mean when I said these guys aren't ready right now,
and they're very different.
Very different.
I think, but like based on like the stuff that I said, and because of, like I said, us playing so many linebackers, I think Thompson is more ready and more usable than Etheridge is right now.
I could see that.
So that's why I think we will end up keeping him as a practice squad, potentially on the roster kind of guy. Well, that wraps up linebackers. This is going to be the core of our defense. These are going to be the guys, hopefully, we're going to see flying around, making the plays. Anything you guys want to plug or say before we sign off?
No, I'm all set.
All right. Don't forget, rhinoceroses' horns are made of the same thing that our nails are made of.
We don't know that for a fact.
Right. But what's the protein?
It's keratin.
According to
right,
Jeff,
that's right.
It's keratin.
Their horns are big fingernails.
I'm cutting this.
Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.